Welcome to Madison City Channel's Know Your Candidates interviews, co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Dane County. I'm your interviewer, Andrea Kaminsky, and I'd like to introduce Ben Jones, running for Circuit Court Judge for Branch 1. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to League of Women Voters and City Channel for putting this on.
Okay, thanks. As we begin, please give an opening statement about the professional, educational, and civic background that you have, which prepares you for this office, and also why you're running for the Circuit Court Judge.
Sure, thank you. I was appointed by Governor Evers to Branch 1 to take over for Susan Crawford after she was elected to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And before I was appointed, I was a school attorney for a long time. So first I was a school attorney representing school districts and municipalities in private legal practice. And school districts were always my favorite clients. They were always doing what was best for kids, so that naturally led me to work for the Department of Public Instruction. I was an attorney for Governor Evers when he was state superintendent, and then I worked as the chief legal counsel for the Department of Public Instruction under Carolyn Stanford Taylor and Dr. Underly. And I became a judge because, for lack of a better phrase, things are a mess, especially at the federal level. Democratic institutions are failing, and guardrails are being blurred or ignored altogether. And so we need judges here in Dane County and Wisconsin that understand how power is meant to be shared between the federal and state governments, the importance of the Wisconsin Constitution right now to protect civil liberties and to protect democratic processes. And so Governor Evers, in selecting judges to be appointed to the bench, he looks for public servants who have an understanding of what I was talking about and also have the right demeanor and attitude in the courtroom. Folks who are willing to recognize the dignity of everybody who appears in the courtroom, who advance equity, and who take the time to listen and really to be kind to anybody and everybody who appear in court. And so the committee that appoints judges thought that I had those qualities, and I think it's my highest best use as a public servant. And so I'm confident that I'm the right person for this time to be judge in Branch 1.
All right, thank you. How will your experience assist you in working with people from different backgrounds who will come before you in court?
Right, so working at the Department of Public Instruction, there are a wide variety of members of the public that I would encounter on a day-to-day basis. People who had experienced abuse at the hands of a teacher or staff member, people who are going through a difficult expulsion proceeding and are appealing to the Department of Public Instruction, members of the public concerned with whether they're going to be able to obtain special education services for their children. And so I've had years of experience both in the government and in private practice having those difficult conversations with people of all kinds of different backgrounds, trying to work toward a solution for those issues. And so I've been tested and I've demonstrated an ability to connect with people, whether adverse to me or whether I'm working on their behalf, to navigate difficult conversations and difficult issues. And that's translated very well to the courtroom. I've been in court now since August 1st of last year as a judge, and I've had those same difficult conversations. Everybody who comes into court, it's either their most important moment of their life, the worst moment of their life, or some combination of the two. And knowing that and taking the time to listen and empathize and still apply the law in a fair and even-handed way, I've taken all those experiences in my time as a public servant and applied those in the courtroom.
In the arena of criminal law, how do you think about balancing the rights of the accused with the rights of the victims?
Right. It's difficult. It's extraordinarily difficult. And there have been cases that have come to the Supreme Court, Wisconsin Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, and decisions and ideas and thoughts on how to balance those equations, right? How to balance what a victim is entitled to, what society is entitled to, and what is best to rehabilitate an offender. And so it's hard to say, make a blanket statement for every circumstance, every individual, as to here's the right decision. It really is about taking the time to understand the circumstances of a crime, the circumstances that apply to an individual, how they got to that situation, how they, their background, their life that led them to committing a crime, and also understanding that victims have rights and to restitution, to justice, and to make sure that there is a balancing of those scales. And that's, I mean, a judge should not apply a cookie-cutter approach to every circumstance. And trying to balance those things is a difficult decision and a difficult process for every single case. But taking the time and applying that care and attention to every case is what being a judge is all about.
Okay. What do you see as important and innovative ideas for programs to help with the overtaxed criminal justice system and to avoid recidivism by offenders?
Sure. So there is a substantial effort now in the corrective institutions to educate, to provide education to prisoners and inmates. And one of the primary, or I don't know if primary, but one of a significant factor in recidivism is once somebody gets out of being an incarcerated individual, they have nowhere to go, they have no skills, they don't have the tools necessary to establish a stable life for themselves and their family. And so providing educational opportunities in the prison system and the Department of Corrections system is necessary and very useful to advance that interest and reduce recidivism. And also on the front end, ways to avoid people entering into the prison system, entering into the justice system in the first place. Working at the Department of Public Instruction, I saw the school-to-prison pipeline active in many instances where the various institutions meant to support a student, meant to keep them in school and learning, failed. And a school might expel a student, and that student nowhere to go, no stability. Mm-hmm. What happens in a lot of cases is committing a crime and entering into the judicial system. And so both a preventative approach and a rehabilitative approach to try to give folks skills and opportunities to give them other options aside from committing crimes. And then, of course, drug treatment programs, diversion programs, because simply sitting in a jail cell isn't going to do an inmate or society any good. And it's up to the judicial system to try to rehabilitate people in a meaningful way.
How will you ensure that you remain impartial both in practice and appearance while serving in this judicial office? What personal values will you bring with you to this office?
Right. I've thought a lot about that particular issue, especially coming from a different branch of government. So I came from the executive branch of government, and worked a lot with the legislative branch of government as part of my duties at DPI, trying to come up with policy solutions to problems impacting society, impacting kids. And I know now, after taking the bench or sitting on the bench, I've got to leave that behind, right? I have to separate myself because I'm a part of the judicial branch. The days of advocating for policy or some vision of the future where I think this XYZ law should happen, those are behind me for the reasons that I talked about at the beginning. Separation of powers matters, right? I, as a member of the judicial branch, I don't make the laws, I don't execute the laws, I interpret the law and apply the law. And it's extraordinarily important to keep that separate in my day-to-day work, because I'm a large believer in the separation of powers and a student of the Constitution, both the state and the federal Constitution, and that matters in a democratic society. And so, having said that, there are things happening in the world today that go beyond just policy and are really an attack on democracy itself. And when that happens, it's up to everybody. It's up to every branch of government to say, this is not how things are supposed to be done. For example, early days of this most recent administration, there was a threat to withhold funding for education if states did not comply with a interpretation of the law that this administration had dictated to the various departments of public instruction across the state. And when I was general counsel, we said, we're not going to do this. We're not going to participate in this wholesale change that was taken out of thin air, that wasn't adopted by Congress, that wasn't debated in the public sphere. We're going to say, unless you can prove to us that this is lawful, we're going to stand up and say no, and the administration backed down. And that's an example of if the levers of power are being exercised outside of that democratic process, then it's up to everybody to stand up and say no.
Okay. Well, what else would you like to say to the viewing audience as we complete this interview?
Sure. I just, I've had some time since being appointed judge to learn from many of my colleagues, to learn from Justice Crawford, who I replaced on the bench. I've talked with lawyers who appear in front of courts and to learn and to understand what makes a good judge. And I felt that I've gotten enough support, a lot of support from Justice Crawford. She's supporting me in my reelection, from my colleagues who've endorsed me, from local community members that have endorsed me, that I'm confident that I am the right person for the right job. And I've learned that most of this job, most of what it takes to be a judge, is being kind. And that's something that I've heard from judges who have sat on the bench for 2 years, up to 30 years, to 35 years, is that the secret to being a good judge and a lasting judge is to be kind. And that informs everything that I do on the bench, everything that I've talked to in this interview, from a name change hearing to a divorce to a motion for reconsideration of a murder trial, anything in between. If you start with and end with being kind, 9 times out of 10, you're going to make a good decision.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you, Ben Jones, for speaking with us, and I want to thank the viewing audience for taking the time to know your candidates. I want to remind everyone that the primary election is on Tuesday, February 17th, and the general election is Tuesday, April 7th. Every election is important. Please vote. On behalf of Madison City Channel and the League of Women Voters of Dane County, I thank you for joining us.